All right, hello everyone. So it is 1 o'clock here in Alexandria on the East Coast, and so we are going to go ahead and get started. Today we have Kim Brown with us, a CADCA trainer who's going to be chatting about sustainability. So she'll go through the webinar. We're very excited to have her. And then just as a quick reminder that after this webinar is finished, you can join Kim on the CADCA community, and there'll be a longer Q&A there that you can participate in, either asking questions with Kim or even having larger conversations with other CADCA members about what you heard today, how you're addressing sustainability in your community, in your coalition. If you're not a member, please go ahead and email membership@cadca.org, and they can work to get you set up with a membership so that for future webinars, you're able to participate in that conversation on the community after. And I will put that information in the chat box as well so that people can take a look if they're interested. That being said, I'm very excited to have Kim with us, and I will hand it over to Kim to take it away. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany, and welcome everyone this afternoon to Wednesday webinars. As said, I am Kim Brown. I live in the southwestern region of Virginia in the beautiful Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains. And it is such an honor to be able to share some time with you today and talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is sustainability. And when I think of sustainability, I don't think of what's the next grant that we're going to apply for, but it really is about building relationships. So I'm excited to be here. I invite you to use your chat pod if you have any questions. I will periodically stop, and Brittany will be assisting me in pulling up those questions, and we can answer those so you don't have to wait to the end. And with that being said, let's get started. Maybe we'll get started if I could get my screen to advance. There we go. Today's learning objectives are, for me, I want to make sure that when you leave today's webinar, that you will be able to describe why sustainability is so important. Also, you'll be able to identify some local community resource partners that you can work with, as well as be able to identify some local resources that you need to function as a collaborative. CADCA's definition of collaborative sustainability is a sustainable collaborative that has enough resources to intervene at the community level and can maintain these resources long enough to see measurable community level outcomes. I'll say that again, it's about intervening at the community level and having measurable community level outcomes. That is how you get to tell your story, with those measurable community level outcomes. So we're going to do a pre-objectives poll. I think Brittany's going to pull that up for us. And I'd like you to answer, there's 3 questions. So if you would answer these 3 questions for me, I want to see where we are today. How would you rate your ability to describe why sustainability is important? How would you rate your ability to identify local community resources, as well as local resources that you need to function? So how would you rate your ability to do that? So feel free to choose low, fair, high, or very high. We'll give you all just a few minutes to complete this. Is anyone having trouble getting to the poll?
I don't think so. We've got a good number going. We've got 75% that have voted so far.
Good, good, good. Thank you, Brittany.
Looks like we've got the majority of people that have responded that are going to, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so it looks like we have fair to high to very high. So there are some experts in the room that I may be asking you to put some comments in the chat box. Let's see, so I think this is going consistent throughout. Okay, this is good. This is good. We have some that are high, very high, and identifying resources, so they're going to be very helpful. Great, 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 great. Awesome. Thank you. This helps me to know where the conversation is going to go today. So thank you so much. All right. There are 4 things that community collaborations must sustain. Number 1 is a strong volunteer and membership base. And this is where I'm going to be focusing attention today, is on a strong volunteer and membership base. Also, a credible resource, such as the Strategic Prevention Framework. Again, having relevance to community concerns, like, what is the community concerned with? And we're going to talk a little bit about how you determine those. And then finally, those financial and other resources that are required to do the work. And I guess when I look at this slide, what really I think is really, really important is number 1, the strong volunteer and membership base, having credible process and resources to do the work. I mean, that's the biggie. You really need to have enough individuals to do the work. So we start with recruiting and carefully growing our membership. Why? Because it is the strong volunteer and membership base that carries out and implements the credible process. It is the strong volunteer and membership base that helps the coalition to stay abreast of current community concerns and uses the credible process so that the group can identify those shared resource root causes that each organization has to deal with. And also it demonstrates how issues interact. So when you are growing this strong and volunteer base, you're going to be doing some training with them and in the processes and raising their awareness about community issues. And then that final, it is the strong volunteer and membership base that financially contributes and helps raise financial and other resources. And I can't say it enough, required to do the work. I can't tell you how many times I've had coalition coordinators, and I've walked in these shoes as well, where you were it. You're like, it was really hard to get the community members involved. Those that come to the table as the collaborative, those are usually leaders in organizations who have their plates full. So it's important if you're sitting at a coalition table or collaborative table, and you're holding leadership within an organization or a position at all, it's important to recruit others, that you be the one to recruit others to come to the table and help do this work. Because it's impossible for 1 or 5 or even 10 people to really get everything that needs to be done. You really, I can't say it enough, need a strong volunteer and membership base. And this is why. When we're recruiting members and volunteers, one of the first things we want to do is orient them. So have an orientation about how does this collaborative operate? What is the vision? What's the mission of this group? What are some roles? What are the roles in this group? And what are the tasks? And how do you all run your day-to-day business? What is it what's in it for me? That's the biggie. That's where building these relationships are so important. You can have a win-win. Also providing opportunities for engagement, having social gatherings for the coalition, having, giving them things to do. A lot of people don't want to come to the table and just sit. They want to have things to do. and also inviting, and this is the coordinator role, inviting those existing and new members to do the work. It is important, important, important to do that. So when you're looking at membership recruitment, who you need at the table, you know, we have coalition sectors. Well, we have sectors, actually CADCA has sectors that we thoroughly recommend that you partner with, but that's in, which is 12, but there's more of those. We have businesses, that's one of the 12. Childcare providers, when you're looking at that community level, you know, you may be working with families, and it may be just an issue where a family needs childcare. The thing about the organizations that can come and sit at your collaborative table is that they all bring some type of human service or program that they are operating. And what you want to do is bring all that together so that you have a comprehensive approach to addressing the issue. And that includes your civic and volunteer groups, also courts and probation. You know, even though we may be a prevention coalition, we're dealing with the substance use issues. So we need to have courts and probation at the table. And with that being said, we also need to have those in recovery, or the recovery community at the table as well. We also need to have, of course, you know, your secondary, elementary school, healthcare professionals, higher education, your human and social service providers, law enforcement, media. All these things are, these people have the expertise, they have the resources, and they have the know-how to address the issue from their agency point of view or from their organization point of view. So it's just trying to get lots of different people at the table that have the different skill sets and the different expertise. So when we put them together, we have a comprehensive collaborative that can truly make those community level changes, as well as show us some of those outcomes and just bringing their resources to the table to do the work. So strong volunteer membership base entails these processes. And number one is having an annual collaborative assessment. And I think this is really important because one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the faces at the coalition table will change from time to time. They may come for one specific thing and it may have a start and end time, and then there may be someone else. So having that annual current leadership team and member and volunteer assessment is going to help you to improve processes that they may have questioned, you know, how do we do this? It would also give you an opportunity to recognize the successes of your membership. And sometimes you may change or do an assessment or something just based on what the survey says, you know, when you're doing that annual assessment. You cannot count on the same people being at the table forever. So it's important to have that annual assessment so you can feel the temperature quickly of what's going on in the group. And then the credible process, which is your strategic framework. It's all about collaboration. That's one of the beauty about the strategic prevention framework, is it all of those elements, those 5 elements of doing your needs and resource assessment and doing your planning and building your capacity and implementing and evaluating all the things that you said you would do, is something that is a collaborative process. It takes the entire community. So when you think about doing a resource and needs assessment, well, that means you want a team that have been trained in how to administer whatever tools that you're collecting, and be able to administer it in the community and then bring that back. It's amazing what you can do. I think about one of the projects that I had in Washington County. It was under the state incentive grant, and it was an alcohol-related motor vehicle crash, looking at reducing it between our 18 to 24-year-olds. And I remember talking with the agency about who would be a good person to kind of be over the assessment piece, someone that knows all the parents, has children and teenagers in the age group that we might want to reach out to. And we divided up the work. There are 7 districts in our counties, so we asked for a volunteer from each of those districts, and that person was responsible for collecting the data from that area. It was amazing how much we collected. It was a lot more than it would have been if it had just been one person out there trying to collect. We even recruited the young adults, the audience that we wanted to impact, which gave them an opportunity to share how they felt and also collect data. So all the processes for the strategic prevention framework are designed to be collaborative. Also, ongoing meetings, not just that monthly meeting at the leadership table, but there should be work groups or teams that can work on things like what I have in parentheses. You may have an assessment planning work group or team. And that group would be responsible for making sure you have ongoing assessment and also, planning with the data that's been collected. Another work group could be activities and events. That would be those, if you were having some kind of outreach training or just doing an outdoor event. It may be an activity that's happening in your community, like a fair. So activities and events would be its own work group or team. Media and public relations is another team. And that would be all things messaging, whether it's in print or digital format. And then finally, resource development and sustainability. And that's where what we're talking about right now falls under that team or work group. And as you see, that's 4 work groups there. And each of those would have a leader, and they would not meet during the real coalition, actual coalition meeting, but outside. In other words, they will set their own time that they can meet that is convenient for them. And as a result of all that, you will be able to create and use coalition-specific products, which CADCA has a plethora of tools and templates that you can use if you are a member and you have access to. So I encourage you to browse through our websites and look for those coalition-specific products like the strategic and action plan, evaluation plan documents. There is actually a sustainability template that you can pull and use, and it talks about all of the different elements. But without that strong volunteer and membership base, all of this is null because there's no one to do the work. And that is my passion, is that everyone needs to be involved in doing the work, including the audience that we have chosen for impact. And with that, I'm going to stop there and ask if we have any questions in the chat pod.
Yes, we do. So somebody asked, what advice would you have in regards to sustainability for someone who is new to their coalition in year 7 in this COVID era of communication?
And say that one more time.
So they're looking for advice on sustainability for someone who's new to their coalition in year 7 in this COVID era of communication.
Oh, yes. All right. So I can certainly relate to the COVID area of communication. We've been doing a lot of virtual training. So if you're a new member and you're wondering, how are we going to sustain these things in the midst of this COVID? Well, one of the things is getting comfortable with the virtual platform. Outside of this webinar today, I've been doing a lot of virtual training, not just in Virginia, but kind of nationally. And I have been able to engage participants. It's unlike today. Today, you're looking at me and I'm talking to you and you can see my PowerPoint. I can't see you, but there are platforms that we could, like Zoom. So I've done a lot of those things on Zoom. We've done Google Docs. So I've been able to create templates for the participants to work on. And And I think too, as I go on in this webinar, we're going to talk about the 6 R's. And I have a feeling that too is going to really answer your question about being new and how to sustain. And that's why today it really is about relationships. Even with the new person, if you're new, I'm hoping that your group has sat down with you and or did an orientation, and then I think I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm actually going to cover this. Brittany, is there any other questions other than that? I hope that answered.
Nope, that was the only one so far.
All right, well, we're getting ready to answer that question. So I just talked about, building the processes that help you to build relationships, but it's a different story when it comes to retaining strong volunteers and memberships. Because what you really want to do is build long-term relationships. And I've listed here just a few of the partners that would be beneficial to a collaborative, and that is building long-term relationships with human service agencies and organizations, building long-term relationships with the faith-based community, and your middle school and your high school youth who will turn into young adults, and you can still incorporate them. I'm really excited. I say that because I've had some middle school and high school youth that I've worked with over the years, and they grew up to be young adults, and I've just been amazed at what they've been able to do in their communities. If you haven't talked to me at all, or if you've actually had 5 minutes with me, you will know that my audience of impact are our young adults, 18 to 29. I'm very excited about them getting into leadership. All right, so the main things about retaining, because you notice that first word is retaining our strong volunteers and members, is through the 6 R's. And this is what we're going to go through over the next little bit. The 6 R's. It's about relationships, which is what I say. It's about relationships. It's about role. It's about respect. It's about recognition. It's about rewards. And it's about results. That's how we maintain our strong volunteer and membership base. So, thinking about relationships, like I had read earlier, it's about, getting to know each other, getting to know what each other's interests are. And, there's a lot of ways to do that. You could, at your meetings, maybe just do one of the ones I like to do is, are you a this or that? And you can just, it's kind of like just a little icebreaker, and just going around the meeting and having everyone answer like, are you salt or are you pepper? And just little things like that, little gifts, or just building that relationship thing. So socializing within the coalition in the meeting, and also socializing outside, having a recognition celebration of the coalition itself and its memberships and those partners that have made a difference and been very supportive. So outside of coalition meetings, it's important to get together and fellowship with each other and collaborate. And it's also important to have one-on-ones. It's good to, maybe it's a new member. It'd be great to take that member out for coffee and just sit down and talk about, what is the new member interested in? What role do they want to play? How do they think things are going? What recommendations they might have? There's just a lot of ways to build relationship. And one of them is providing socializing inside and outside of coalition meetings. The second one is roles, and I've got all this on here because roles are very, very important, but they're only important if they're written. So if you have someone new coming into the coalition group or the collaborative group, it's important to have things in order, like roles. No one wants to come to a meeting and sit and not have a clue what their role is. It'll get boring and they're probably not going to come. So it's going to be important to have role descriptions, and you would find those in your coalition or your collaborative bylaws. It should be in there how the roles are and what they are, and it should be written. Second, as I just talked about, the groups or the excuse me, work groups or teams that could spread the work. I mean, that's the whole purpose of having them. They are able to work outside the regular coalition meeting. They are able to bring in community members that may not come to the main table, but they're more than happy to work, behind the scenes in the work group to get things done. And it's a great way to spread the work. I think of a group and that I worked with out of Virginia, one of the coalitions. It was Goochland Powhatan. And I remember doing the bylaws with them. They were brand new and asked me to come in and do some planning with them. And I remember running into one of them at the Leadership Forum in 2019 and asking them how it was going. And it brought me such joy to say, you would not believe how those bylaws have made an amazing difference. It's so much easier. And I agree. But if it's not written, it just, there's where can you go and refer to? So role descriptions within bylaws is one way to make sure that you retain your volunteers and members. Also, empowering those work groups with the power and authority to make decisions and to act. That too is part of bylaws, because the majority of the work actually happens within work groups or work teams. And it usually happens outside of the regular meeting. All the work is done, then the work group comes back to the full meeting and say, this is what we did, this is what we're planning to do, and you simply get the approval from the full group for what you want to do. But all the work happens maybe in the evening with your work group team, as well as who the audience is that you have chosen for impact. Definitely need to be at the table, because we really can't decide what we want to do for others without asking them for their input. And then the other thing is, after you orient them, I would actually go over the bylaws and different things that you have in place, and then ask the members and volunteers how they want to be involved. There's a lot of people have a lot of expertise, and we don't ask, and it's like, let's ask them how they want to be involved. Let's let them make that decision. And then you want to write it down. And there are two tools that you can use for that, which is like a coalition involvement agreement or a memorandum of understanding. But it would detail the win-win. The coalition would put in that agreement, this is what the coalition will provide for you. And then you can say, well, these are the things that I can provide for the coalition. And it may be things like accounting services. It may be things like childcare, because we were talking earlier that childcare can be, it can be a barrier. But imagine if we could get a volunteer or organization to say, provide childcare for whatever events we might be having. Communications, and there's always room for computer and technology. So needing someone with expertise in those things. They're going to be able to help you out with your media and your public relations. Again, when you're developing those media and public relations messaging, it's important to include the audience that you've chosen for impact. There's legal services. Sometimes you may need someone to just help you with language and writing up some things. Like, I think what comes to mind is a fiscal agent resolution. If the coalition isn't a 501c3, then it has a fiscal agent. And it's important to have that fiscal agent resolution in place. And strategic planning, web design, there's a lot of different things that are needed in order to retain. And I will say that you have these people, they're in your community, and all it means is reaching out and getting to know them. And before you ask them to come to the table, tell them why you exist and why they are needed. And then, have those roles so that they can feel comfortable about what happens within this group and how can they fit in and serve. So with that, I'm going to see if there are any questions in the Q&A. Brittany?
Oh, there are plenty.
Yay.
There's a lot. So I'm going to start with this one. Are there recommendations and icebreaker questions to grow relationships during COVID virtual only world?
Well, interestingly, I think just having the opportunity to get together and talk about what's happening, it makes me think of a group. I just did a strategic planning with a group out of Maryland. And, of course, we're right in smack dab in the middle of COVID because this was in August and September. And I found that it was a relief. It was healing to them, actually, to be able to talk about what they wanted to do with their students. They talked about things they had done. They talked about what they'd like for the administration to do differently. So I think, just being able to have a place where you can talk about what you're experiencing is a way to build relationships. Because I remember watching this group from when we started and then when we end, and you could just see they had just gelled amazingly together. And it was all that sharing back and forth, even though it was virtual. It was great. Next.
So Shanda asks, how do you further engage youth in the coalition due to all of the COVID rules and regulations?
Well, they're the experts that can fix it out, or you can get on technology and they'll just freak you out with the amazing things that they can do. Well, and it's interesting. I like that question because, believe it or not, we had some youth on the webinar with the school system. And I was just over the moon. We had several young men and women. I think there were about 5 of them. At first, they really weren't going to say anything because of the adults in the room, but then I called them out. And they begin to share. They do want to be involved. They want to be asked. They are amazing with technology. It's amazing what they can do. I would just ask them, what is your expertise? And we would like to utilize your expertise. So youth are ready. They just want to be asked. They don't want to come to that monthly meeting table, the big long table, but they would love to get together in the afternoon, maybe somewhere and have a pizza and believe me, they will tell you more than you ever want to know. So I hope that helps.
So to go a little bit further on that, Melissa asked, how do you reach parents of the youth during this time?
Yes. Well, to reach parents of the youth, example, when I was doing the Washington County project, I asked the prevention director, I said, who's the parent on your coalition? And so she told me, and I made her in charge of the parents. So that gave her something to do. And so she was able to recruit any parents that we needed for an event, any parents that we needed for activities that we were doing. And by the end, she told me she needed a business card because she'd done so good. So parent to parent.
So Ellen just asked, you say to reach out and ask them to recruit them, but how do you get 2 youth to ask them?
You need to recruit a youth to go and ask the youth. I mean, that I'm telling you, it can't be more powerful than that. You just recruit. Matter of fact, I'm doing that right now. I've got a group of youth that we're getting ready to do some things in my little town called Damascus, because there's nothing literally there for the youth to do. They took down all the basketball goals. They won't let the kids skateboard in the park. It's crazy. So what I did is I pulled together a group of youth, and I am training them in skills and tools and things that they're going to need. And they're going to go before the town council and submit their requests to do something different for you. So it's just reaching out to the youth and saying, would you be willing? Because yeah, they will, because they're tired of not having anything to do. I hope that answered your question.
I'm going to save some of these other questions, but quickly, Luann Kramer did put in the Q&A box instead. She said, try starting with a SAD group.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, SAD group. And Youth of Virginia Speak Out. I don't know if you've heard of YOVA, so that's a good one in Virginia. But they have similar of those in other states. So yes, I agree. Find that youth group that's meeting and tell them what we need, and watch the ideas and things just start coming out of their heads. They're really, really, really some smart young people. Thank you. All right, you ready for me to roll? All right, the next R is respect. And that means starting and starting your meetings and ending them on time, sticking to the agenda, having an agenda, written agenda, so that each of the members can see that is important. Providing name tags. You know, it's always nice. I know was a group I was a part of, and they'd have the little table tents, and you could come in and get your table tent and find your seat. And then if there's someone new, you can look over and see who they are, and it's a great way to get to know each other and share respect. And also establishing group agreements, you know, that I usually put up this, let's have one person speak at a time. Let's honor everyone's opinion. Let's not have cell phones, but usually we're so engaged, people don't have an opportunity for their cell phones, but still establishing a group agreement is a way to be respectful. And having timely communications with your members. You know, some will send an email, get back to them, make a phone call. You know, if they've called, be sure you get back to them in a timely manner. And then recognize members' efforts, not just individually, but as a whole. You know, recognizing the agencies that are sitting at your table, some of their accomplishments, recognize those, both at the coalition, you know, during the meeting, but also maybe in the newspaper, you know, do a news article on one of your members or your organizations that has done something that needs to be recognized. And then engage your members in meaningful tasks. That's one of the reasons I really like having work groups, because that gives members a opportunity to be engaged in meaningful tasks. Not saying that when you come together as a full group for that monthly or bi-monthly or sometimes quarterly meeting, doesn't mean that you're not engaging in meaningful tasks then. But a lot of work needs to happen outside of that meeting. It needs to happen in a setting where the audience that you've chosen for impact will feel comfortable. The next R again is recognition, that ongoing, regular public communication and acknowledgement of your member efforts. And I would also say, you know, even with your outcomes, you know, using your outcome data and sharing that ongoing, what are you doing? You know, we're having this, and maybe we're having an event. We just want to keep the community atmosphere saturated with what's happening and what the coalition is doing, because there's no other group in your community that's doing what the coalition is doing. And that's because the coalition is made up of so many different partnerships. And if we treat them with respect by recognizing them and giving them a meaningful role and helping them to be engaged, you can't lose with that. It's just a win-win situation. The next one is rewards. And it's like making sure that the WIFM, the what's in it for me, is met. That WIFM, you know, is going to be different for each member that you want to have. So you're going to have to do some research on each organization and find out what skills and resources that organization has and how we can use it. And then at the same time, letting that organization know what we have that will help them. And I think one of those things is conducting an assessment. When you're conducting a community-wide assessment, then that is helpful to any organization that's sitting at your table, because you're collecting demographic data, you can collecting survey data. There's a lot of tools and things that you can use to ensure that you're letting everyone know what it is and what you're doing and what your outcomes are. And that, again, it really does help each organization sitting at the table, and it makes the process much easier. Also, when you do that, you get your assessment data, then all of you at the table are making a decision like, so what do we need to do? My organization does such and such, and I can do this. So it's important to just have a win-win, and it can be a win-win if we work really hard at it. Next is results. Like I just said, it's all about results. And these are the things that you've got to sustain. We've got to sustain our results, but we can't do it if we don't track and monitor our strategic and action plan measures, as well as collaborative efforts. And that means that the organizations at the table need to bring their organizational data that's relevant to the issue that we are working on, so that we can make sure that we are having the right outcomes that we need. And also, and I know this has been a challenge for a lot of groups, I always try to say, be sure you track your volunteer time. That is valuable, and it's something that you can count. I mean, it's a resource. So tracking volunteer time is critical. And also, anytime you have community training events, tracking those, always doing a pre-post little survey. Doesn't have to be a lot. It can be 2-3 questions, but that's data. And celebrating successes and victories, no matter how small it is. You want to be able to celebrate every success and every victory, and do it publicly and within the organization. And as I said earlier, celebrating those successes and victories of your partner organizations. Let's celebrate them as well. Any questions?
Yes, we have a couple. Stephanie asked, have you found that WIFM, What's in It for Me, has changed over the years? And do you have any advice on any innovative ways to make it more relevant in a time where those may not be so engaged in that concept?
Well, I think it was, yes, I think you can provide a training very similar to what we're doing right now, and talk about the importance of what's in it for me. Because in the past, we really didn't ask. We just like, hey, come sit at the table. We're doing this, and blah, blah, and do this. We're wanting them to be involved. And it's like, we never say, hey, this is what we can do for you. Now, in the coalition or collaborative involvement agreement, the first part of it does lay out what's in it for them. And it would be, and actually I could pull it up. I don't know if I could do this. Well, I'm thinking about like having access to data is huge, because a lot of coalitions, they have a lot of different data. So getting access to that. Mainly you need to ask the individual what it is they want. What is it they need from the collaborative, and having that conversation with them. But again, you want to make sure you have a written document where they can fill in what it is they're going to bring to the table, and you do the same. And that document becomes part of your bylaws, part of your governance documents. So if you allow the individual to choose what they want to do, then they're going to be more than happy to be active with that. I hope that helps.
So there was one other one, and it asked, what are good ways to celebrate small victories or celebrate end of year with coalitions virtually? And before you answer, Kim, I want to share something that somebody put in the chat box as well. They said, our coalition has a local newspaper editor as a partner who does a monthly feature story on one of our other partners. This really raises partnership morale.
Awesome. Thank you for that comment. That is an excellent example of a win-win. Awesome. Now, since I heard that, the question went right out my head.
Oh,
So
it was
it
about
is.
how to celebrate. Oh, sorry, I moved it as well. Sorry to go
How
back
to
and find it.
celebrate.
How to celebrate small victories or celebrate end of year with coalitions virtually.
Oh, okay. So small victories could be something like, hey, let's go get coffee, or I might give you a gift card to your favorite cafe. It might be, and again, asked, if you know this, and I think I mentioned this earlier, if you're wanting to reward, ask them what it is they like. Some people might just like a little thank you card, just little things, but you can do a combination of both, but ask them what they like so that you're making sure it's really a treat. And then doing it online virtually with your coalition, I think there's a lot of fun interactive things that you can do virtually. We've done a lot of amazing things using Zoom, using Google Docs, using WhoopClap, and just a lot of different things where you can do word clouds and just ask questions where they can talk about the things that were celebrated. I think it'd be really cool to be able to see that. And ask the people what they would like to have, because everybody's different. Some people just want a pat on the back. The parent we had just wanted a business card, which that was a reward and recognition. So there's a lot of different ways, from small to big. Next.
So I think right now, I think we can move on, but I just want to remind people that as they're putting things in the chat box, make sure you're selecting all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see it, not just Kim and myself.
Yes, and we are, and I think we are about to wrap up with the content, so I'm looking forward to actually going over the rest of the questions. I love the questions. Thank you. All right, so strong volunteer and membership base. These are the 3 quotes that I wanted to really share with you today, and that is this. And I've seen this a gazillion times. Collaboratives often fail to get things done because they rely too much on reason and too little on relationships. And that's out of Bolman Deal, and they wrote the reorganizing organizations. And one of the things they talk about is what we've talked about today, and it's the human resource development piece. And so I'm hoping that from the discussion we've had today, that you will think more about, who do we need at the table? And I'm going to kind of read over one of the sheets that I had, because I pulled out one of the worksheets from the CADCA, so that I could share with you. So what your checklist is going to be: new members and volunteers are actively recruited, oriented, and trained. And the key is recruited, oriented, and trained. And that's what's really, really important. And so you are promoting relationships among your members and your volunteers. And that's where that social activity, getting together, when we were talking about rewards, that getting together social activity of your volunteers and your members and letting them engage with each other is incredible. Would be awesome. And we know that we can do it virtually, and if anybody wants to do that, I think it'd be awesome. Also, another way, as we said, is those clear roles. It's just important. I'm a believer that if it isn't written, it doesn't happen. So if we don't have how we're going to make decisions written, then that's where the chaos comes in. So we don't want to focus so much on reason, but just relationships. Let's build those relationships through honesty and transparency, and making sure that everything is clear. The second quote is, building a broad base of community support entails figuring out whose help you need. And there are tools and worksheets for that. It's like, who do we need? Well, first you have to identify what your problem is, and then say, well, who in the community addresses this problem in one way or another? or can has services that would help us to supplement what we want to do, and invite them to the table and go through the process of orientation and telling them what you need and why you need them at the table and how they can benefit from being at the table. Figure out who you need and develop those relationships so that they can be there when you need them. And that reminds me of a former project I was leading through Healthy Community Action Team. And I remember recruiting a farmer and told him, what we could do, what we needed. And he said, well, I'm gonna tell you, I probably won't be able to be at the meeting, but if you need something, just reach out to me and I will help you with that. So that's where, when you need them, you can reach out to them. But if we had not built that relationship, because he didn't come to the coalition meetings, but I would keep him abreast from time to time about what was going on. So then when we reached out for need, he was there, even though he never came to the table. We had built a strong enough relationship that he was there to help us out. And then finally, the ability to recruit, educate, and train individuals in credible processes, such as the Strategic Prevention Framework, and coordinate existing local resources to address identified community level issues and opportunities, is what it's all about. It's about recruiting, educating, and training them, and collaborating with those organizations and building relationships with them that have programs and services that would supplement what the coalition is doing and address the issues that you've identified. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. And so I am just excited that you all have been here today. I can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to have this conversation. I know we could talk about it, or at least I could talk about it all day. But in the sake of time, I just want to hear the rest of the questions that you have. And I do want to tell you this before we, that's okay, keep on, Brittany. I just want to show them these last two. When we end this webinar, CADCA has an online community that if you are a member, you can join the community and ask questions that we didn't answer here. Also, you got advocacy. This is the group where you can get, I can't tell you, a plethora of resources, and it is awesome. There are a lot of expertise. We have expertise in not just the staff of CADCA, but of other trainers that you can be connected to get resources. And after this, we are going to be open in the CADCA community for you to, if you didn't ask questions here, and you may have other questions, you can enter the community, and I will be online for an hour after this webinar and available to answer any of your questions that you have. There's a discounted registration, $200 for the National Leadership Forum and Mid-Year Training Institute. There's unlimited roster. There's a lot of information in the CADCA member benefits. So I encourage you to take advantage and just kind of from time to time go online and look at that. And this is what it's going to look like. You'll log into the CADCA community, and then you'll see there's a lot of different posts going on and a lot of different subjects. So we are going to add to that today, which I'm excited about because you've already asked some wonderful questions. And with that being said, I'm going to let Brittany share with me some of the questions that were in the chat box.
Yeah, so Celia asked, could you please pop those quotes in the chat box? Sounds like something that would be great to put in a recruitment brochure or elevator speech. And I'll also say, if you email them to me, Kim, I can make sure that they're posted on the Webinar Wednesday website, along with the recording of this webinar and your PowerPoint.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. Well, is there anything else? Because we're at the end of our slide.
So there was one more. So Helen said, I have 3 weekly parent anonymous groups in 3 different languages, but the participation is very low. Should I continue to promote the groups or should I stop the program? Parents don't want to be bothered with anything in the middle of COVID. The schools are having a big challenge and I don't know how to move forward at this time.
Well, the one, I know what a challenge it is to have different languages in your group. I would think, I know what it's like. I'm saying, you know, how they really aren't wanting to participate. A lot of that is just not understanding. It's a different platform for one thing. I wouldn't give up on them. I would share some resources with them, which might prompt them to say, hey, can we talk more? And then maybe an incentive for them to participate. Maybe there's a little small incentive. Maybe they would be eligible for a gift card to a grocery store, you know, to buy some things for their family. Just little stuff would be helpful, but I wouldn't give up on them. I know it's been hard for all of us navigating this environment. We just want to continue to give hope to ourselves and to others. And we do have some platforms that we can use virtually. You know, but you know, if you had a really, really small group, you could do in person as long as you use mask and distance, and that might be helpful. So those are two recommendations that I would have for that group. And I wish you the very best.
So I don't see any other questions that have popped up, but I do want to give people just a minute or two to put them in. But while you're doing that, I have put the evaluation link in the chat box. So please make sure to fill out the evaluation. And if you are a member, please make sure to join us on the community just as this is wrapping up. And I will put the link for that in the chat box as well. Kim, I don't know if you've been in the chat box during this, but there's a lot of great stories that people are sharing about how they are working and building relationships in their community as well.
All right, let me go up and let's see. Oops. Yeah, I definitely want to collect these. This is great. All right, so let me see what I got here. Wow, I'm loving where all the reach. We got Texas. This is awesome. Montana. Oh my goodness, Connecticut, New York. This is awesome. West Michigan, Illinois. Wow, Utah, Oklahoma. Guys, you're gonna make me cry. I'm gonna really try to hold it together here. This is really, really, really cool. Wow. All right, let's see if I can find one. Oh. So Modesto Community Alliance Coalition has a Facebook link. Nice. Ta-da. Nice. Oh, this is nice. Hello, December. Like it, like it, like it. So your mission is to engage and serve the community through education and prevention of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. How awesome. Job well done. This is nice. Thank you for sharing this. I'm going to keep that for future references. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Syracuse. We got Alabama. Hello, hello. Pennsylvania. This is incredible. Louisiana. South Carolina. Okay.
I don't see anything else coming through on the in the question box. So I will say thank you very much, Kim. And again, encourage everyone to make sure that they take the evaluation link and they fill out that evaluation. Keep an eye out for a recap email that will also be coming with that link. So we invite you to join us sorry, let me double check just on that date before I say it publicly, and I can't swallow it back. Join us on December 16th. Kim Lobb, who was supposed to present in November, is scheduled to do her webinar on community capacity, building the foundation for success. So we're very excited to have another Kim. We have many Kims here at CADCA and we love them all. So join us December 16th, and then immediately right after this, join Kim Brown in the community. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a wonderful December.
Thank you all so much.